dear teachers. Last time we talked about the sequence of steps that each teacher shall follow in order to teach any objective. The sequence of steps that we shall go through in our session. Well, today I'm going to answer the question that comes to a lot of teachers' mind whenever they hear about this sequence, which is, why do we follow this sequence in specific? On what scientific base do we build our trust with this sequence of steps? Well, the answer is easy, which is Bloom's taxonomy. Before we go on with Bloom's taxonomy, I have prepared a historical background about it. First of all, Benjamin Bloom, the educational psychologist who created Bloom's taxonomy, collected data from different places, and then he published his paper in 1956, which is not important at all. I just like to show off. Then it was renewed in 2001. We are going to cover the new version of Bloom's taxonomy, the 2001 version of Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom says that our mind, any person's mind, go through three phases, three levels of thinking in order to acquire knowledge, in order to observe the knowledge. He says that our minds go through first low level of thinking, middle level of thinking, and then high level of thinking. He said that the low level of thinking is shown through the process of remembering. Remembering is the lowest level of thinking, in which we recall the previous information. This is why we start with a bell ringer with our session. We warm up with our students. We recall him, we help him to recall something old, and then we relate it to something new. Then we move to the middle level of thinking, in which we have two processes, which are understanding and applying. In understanding, the student will be able to explain whatever he got, to explain whatever you told him. Then he try this information in more than one way. Like for example, in math, you teach him a rule, he will be able to explain it, and then he will apply it on his book, on his copybook. Then we move to a higher level of thinking, which is the high level of thinking, in which we have three processes: analyzing, evaluating, and creating. In analyzing, the student will be able to examine that information in different aspects. Whenever he analyzes, he digs deeper in the information, and he will be able to understand it in a higher level. Then he evaluates it. When we say evaluate, it doesn't mean that you as a teacher evaluate the student. It is when he evaluates his own information. Whenever he will be able to build his own perspective, his own point of view, he will be able to argue about his own point of view because he evaluated it and he reached it on his own. The highest level, the highest process in the high level of thinking is creating. Creating is the highest level of thinking, the highest process in thinking. And by the way, in creating, we design something new out of what we know. All the inventions, all the creations, all the new inventions and all the explorations that we do are based on our highest levels of thinking. Whenever we want to develop the world, to make the world a better place, we must train our students to use their highest levels of thinking. With creating, for example, he will be able to use something he knew and create a new information or a new invention out of it. For example, even with linguistics, as an English teacher, I always ask my students, what if? For example, if I taught him a story and I asked him in the end of the story, what if this character didn't do that? What would it change? What if we can build a new ending for that story? What would it be? And this will urge him to think higher and to think more creatively, to train his mind to go out of the box, to be able to create something new. Those are the levels of thinking according to Bloom. Before we go on, I want to highlight something, which is some people say that the processes of Bloom's taxonomy are not in the correct sequence. There are some exceptions for that. I want to highlight that every rule has an exception. And as a teacher who applied the processes, that sequence of processes of Bloom's taxonomy, I found them very effective. So at least try them if you don't, and be aware to share whatever you know. Thank you so much, and hope you enjoyed whatever I said today. See you soon.